All right, so we're in the KG Lounge, and tonight's proposition is going to be pro-choice is true. Our relevant debaters are Smoothie and Capp. Smoothie will take a affirmative view, and the judge and moderator that I like, they will be Flo. With that being said, let's get right into it.
Yeah, so I guess my first question, this is a clarity question. How are you defining the pro-choice thesis? Is it just the thesis that abortion is going to be the kind of thing which is morally permissible?
Yeah, morally permissible.
Okay, got it. And when you say morally permissible there, well, I mean, I guess the first question is what would be your motivator, I guess, up to like error theory or moral abolitionism, which is want to say that um, it's a meta-ethical thesis. It just wants to say something like when we use moral language, we purport to describe objective facts, and there aren't actually any of those facts. And then moral abolitionism just wants to say that we should cease use of moral language altogether.
I don't take it to be the case, and when we talk about moral language, we are in reference towards moral facts or objectivity in reference towards the moral talk. I think we can use this thing as a comprehensible inside of a debate. I don't think we have to say that there's an objectivity with language
And is
itself.
that and when you say you don't think we use it, is that an empirical claim? Or are you saying that the folk
No,
people who
I'm
use
saying,
this
I'm saying that we don't have to use it. I don't. I'm saying to have it.
where is the judge
I'm
at,
saying to
nigga?
have a debate. Oh, the nigga left. I'm saying to have a debate. We don't have to use this thing.
Okay, we're gonna have to wait for the judge to
Have a
get
debate
back real
about moral
quick.
talk. We don't have to say that moral
Wait,
talk.
just use cool guy said you a judge.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, cool guy said he would judge me versus CH. He can judge me versus Cap. Yeah,
Where he at?
right here.
Go guy, speak.
He said, yeah, you
Okay,
can
cool.
judge.
Got to just
I
fight this.
can, I can, I can, I can
Okay,
judge.
so
Can type him down. Same thing.
when you say we, are you making a claim about the
Wait,
folk?
just let the judge know what the prop is, by the way.
The proposition
yeah,
is pro-choice versus is abortion. I'm running pro-choice. He's obviously running pro-life, I think, or he's just being skeptic. What he's asking
Yeah,
me
I'm
right
just taking
now
that.
is yeah. What he's
But yeah,
asking.
so
But
when you say we there, are you making a claim about the folk people, or are you just making a claim that, for the sake of your argument, you're not using it in that kind of way?
I'm just saying I'm not using it in that type of way. It's just for in the intelligibility
Okay,
of
so
our.
you're not committed to objectivity.
You said what?
Uh, so you're not committed to moral objectivity, right?
Yeah, I don't think that you're committed to a moral objectivity just because you use moral talk.
Now, I'm asking, when you use moral language, you're not trying to pick out some
Yeah, I'm
objective.
saying that I'm not running an objective moral framework. Yes, I understand.
Okay, so what framework are you running?
I can run a quasi-realist, which just means that we talk in a way that is going to be objective, but it's not automatically reducible towards an objective moral talk. It's
Okay, yeah, so
it's like a sophisticated expressivism. It's like that.
yeah, so how would you get around like the embedding problems for those type of views?
The what problem?
Yeah, the embedding problem, it just wants to say that if moral language is not the kind of thing that's going to be propositional, because expressivism commits you to non-cog, right? If moral language isn't the kind of thing which is going to be propositional, it seems to be the case that we could have these coherent moral reasoning and inferential structure, but I don't understand how you would get those type of inferences if moral language is not going to be the kind of thing that's propositional, right?
Why?
Because you aren't actually able to have a true functional relation between the antecedent and precedent in any type of conditional, which it seems as if we could have coherent logical inferences using those type of moral language, right? Those coherent conditionals, right? So how would you get around that type of problem, right? Like we could just take the basic,
I'm saying they
basic
represent.
syllogism.
They can represent it. They can fake represent themselves as a proposition and fake represent themselves as using the conditionals or condition to be true. But it
But
doesn't automatically mean
how
that the
would you
moral.
get the
Hold on, but it
inference
doesn't
then?
automatically mean that the moral talk is going to be propositional. I give an example of like concepts versus the actual thing. Like for example, I can say that the concept can be. I mean, the concept or the actual thing represents the concept in itself, but the concept and the actual thing aren't similar. They aren't the same thing. It's just a representation of what it is.
Oh, but I'm asking, like, how would you exactly get the inference?
Get the inference of what?
Like, let's say we have some syllogism like, if Steelers is wrong, to get my brother to Steelers wrong. Steelers wrong conclusion, to get my brother to Steelers wrong.
I'm
Right?
sorry.
Like, how would you even have the true functional
I didn't hear
relation?
what you. No, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, we could just take the basic syllogism, if Steelers is wrong, then getting my brother to Steelers wrong. And then Steelers is wrong, therefore getting my brother to Steelers wrong. How would you get that type of inference under this view? Right, because it seems like the way we want to use both exponents is you want to have a true functional relation between the antecedent and precedent, right? Such that the truth of the antecedent guarantees the truth of the precedent, right? But if you're saying that these morals are going to be the kind of thing that are non-propositional, then I don't understand how you get that inference at all. Like,
Look,
how would you get that?
I'm saying, for example, if you give an example to which makes it things seem like they're using it in a propositional context, I'm saying that well that just because they could be used in a propositional context and how we get a true functional thing by using the said thing in a propositional context, I'm saying that you do not get it. It's not like how do you get it? It's saying that you do not get it in the proposition. You do not
So
get it
you
in the
don't
true
get
functional
any
condition.
coherent, logical, inferential
I'm saying,
structure
yeah,
at all.
I'm saying that we use a premise by premise format for the coherency of the discussion. We don't use it insofar that we're looking for a true functioning condition.
So you don't actually get inferences.
I'm saying you can get inferences from things that are propositional. Moral talk isn't propositional, so you don't get true functionings from those
So
fake
like
propositions.
modus ponens, you would say that you aren't able to get modus ponens under this moral framework.
No, I'm saying that you cannot get modus ponens under this framework insofar that they set things to which you're giving, because you said to give these set things there have to be true functioning. I'm saying that those things aren't true functioning, so you can't
I'm
get.
just saying typically that's the way we use it,
Yes,
right? Like
typically, yeah, outside of moral talk, yes, typically that's how we use it. We get it to be true functioning because there are things to which we can elaborate inside of reality for it to be true functioning.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So how would you so then how would you get those inferences under this view?
Under inferences under moral talk,
Yeah, no, I'm saying under the view that moral language isn't propositional.
I'm saying you can't. I'm saying you can't get the inferences because again, you said that the inferences rely on true functions, the true functioning condition. I'm saying that there is no true functioning condition applicable towards that specific instance.
I
If
would
there's
just say
no,
that
if
that's
there's
a
no
way.
true functioning condition applicable inside of that given instance, then you cannot get that from the thing to which it lacks.
Okay, cool. So then I would just say that this type of position is going to be counterintuitive to folk discourse practices in the domain of ethics,
We
right? We
said
could
it's
say,
counterintuitive towards what?
yeah, folk discourse practices within the domain of ethics, right? Like most people, when they have this situation, they want to say something like, when they engage in moral discourse, right? They use these typological emphasis, right?
Yeah, they
Like
use it.
someone
I
on the
agree.
street, if you were to ask someone on the street, well, if stealing is wrong, they get your brother steals wrong, and they would say, well, stealing is wrong. They would say, well, obviously the template for that would just be that getting your brother to steal is wrong, right? They would like most people, they don't have this type of intuition, and I think that
No,
that gives you the feasible reason to actually reject your theory
I
compared to
do not.
competing hypotheses, which do in fact account for these folk discourse practices, right? We could just take like an IBE, right? I think uh, something like error theory would better explain these type of phenomena within the folk discourse practices, right? And I have an argument for that if you want it.
No, you said that it's counterintuitive or it's counterintuitive to the folk. And then you said that the reason to why it's counterintuitive to the folk because we use these specific tools inside of our moral talk, which leads to the probabilistic claim that well, the moral talk to which we do indulge in is going to be in reference towards objectivity or propositional, etc. But again, my claim isn't saying that we do not use these tools. I even instantiated by saying that we use these tools for comprehensibility. We use these tools insofar that it's going to be comprehensible for a debate structure. Doesn't mean that the tools to which we're using is actually applicable towards these specific things. I would categorize it as somewhat like a category error, not fully a category error. I'm just simply saying that these tools cannot be truthfully added upon these specific conditions because again, to have this specific condition, you need a true functioning condition. Moral talk don't have the true functioning condition, so therefore these things cannot be applied towards it in a reasonable or a relevant sense. But these said things can be applied towards it in a conversational sense.
Yeah, but you said we're unable to get these coherent inferences, and I'm saying, well, folk discourse practice actually relies on the fact that, well, they at least would want to have the intuition that you are able to get these right. And I think that if you have some theory that best accounts for these type of folk discourse practices in this domain compared to its competitors, that all else equal, you would have the feasible reason to accept that theory. And I'm saying, well, error theory actually does better account for that than the view that you would hold, which is that these things are going to be non-propositional and you don't actually get these inferences, right? And I can explain why it's going to better account for it, right?
Hold on,
But
hold on, hold on. You said we are unable to get these inferences. I understand that we're unable to get their
Mhm,
inferences in reference towards it having a true functioning condition. We're unable to
mhm.
get we're unable to get those inferences from that specific context. But I don't take that to be a problem in reference towards a quasi-realist type stance. We're unable to get the inferences from an objective type of talk, but we can get these inferences insofar that it's comprehensible for a dialect. We can get these inferences insofar that it's going to be comprehensible towards the domain we apply it towards. And the domain we apply quasi-realist towards going to be non-cog, but it phrases itself as a way that is going to be cognitivist, so it's intelligible for the other interlocutor, so it's intelligible for the conversation entirely. I'm saying that Jesus Christ, I'm just lost in my throat. When we talk about quasi-realism, it's just moral judgments are non-cog. Ordinary moral discourse has a realist surface form, right? The realist form can be vindicated from a non-cog perspective. You can talk and defend realist style moral talk without believing in moral facts, right? That does not mean that that does not believe in moral representation, right? Moral thoughts and discourse represent facts, having moral representational content, right? It just says that it believes in moral attitudes, moral thoughts, discourse, or expressions are represented as an attitude content. So it can have a realist surface form, and that's how we use it insofar that it's intelligible for the conversation. But just because it has that doesn't mean that it needs to have the, etc.
But you would agree that like most people who use this type of language, right? Uh, do you accept this idea that most people use this language have some type of intuition that's when they engage in moral disagreement, they are disagreed over some fact, or at least when they engage in these type of moral discourse, where there
They
is
want,
this type of inferential
they want
structure,
to say
right?
that
You
they're disagreeing over
would you
something.
accept the idea? Hold on, I'm not finished, bitch.
My
Would
bad.
you accept
Who the
the
fuck? Oh,
idea?
fuck no. I just
Yeah,
try to be. I just try to be
just
nice to
shut
you,
up,
Cap.
moderator. Please mute
Sorry,
this.
Kyle, my
Thank
bad. My
you,
bad. My
please.
bad. Go ahead. Don't call Maharaga on me, nigga. Don't call
I'm
Maharaga on me.
asking, I'm asking, would you accept the idea that
Uh-huh.
when people use this type of language, they at least or refer or they at least think that they can get this type of coherent infrastructure? Like, is that an intuition that most people would have? Yes or no?
No, I think the intuition of most people is simply saying that they're disagreeing over something, not disagreeing over the fact of the matter or the state of affairs if it matches reality.
Okay, and that's an empirical claim. So, do you have
No,
any support
no,
for that?
you said, what the fuck? You said that most people disagree with this. Do I agree that most people disagree with this? I'm saying based upon what I know, I don't take it to be the case that when we talk about moral talk or any talk in reference towards these specific facts, we don't say, I don't think that we talk about, oh, I'm not motivating to, it's not motivating to believe that they're in reference towards facts of the matter. It's motivating to believe under which I run this, that they're in reference towards something.
Well, it seems like you made
And I
an
don't have
empirical
motivation to
claim
accept
because I asked you the question I was asking was a very specific question. I asked
it.
you, do you think that most people believe that they can get these type of coherent inferences right? Is that most people's intuition? You said no. So that seems
No,
like it's
hold
actually your burden
on.
to
No,
justify that empirical claim.
no, hold on. You said, do I think most people can get these type of inferences? And I'm saying, I said, I take it to be the case that they say that they disagree over something, right? I don't have
Yeah, and
motivation.
that's an empirical
I'm
claim.
saying, I don't have motivation for the I don't have motivation to what you asked initially, which is motivation of believing that they get these specific inferences. There's no motivation for that. So I'm saying, well, I could just simply say it's just contrary towards yours. I can simply say that they get motivation, or the motivation is in reference towards them disagreeing over something. Now, the fact of the matter is just adding a negation towards yours.
So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make it very clear that
Uh-huh.
for the judge and for the audience that you are actually not meeting your burden right now. You're not justifying this empirical
Uh-huh.
claim, and then we can move on. Accept.
Hold
So
on.
here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you an argument
I
as to why.
know, no, we're not moving on. I'm already telling you, I don't need to justify I don't need to justify this quote unquote empirical claim because I'm not making an empirical claim. I'm saying I take it to be the case that my view is more motivating than yours. I don't need empirical claims to justify my view. I'm saying that it seems to be consistent with it seems to be consistent in which I formulate. It seems to be consistent in which I formulate the non-cog thing or the non-cog domain that is going to be in reference towards disagreeing over something, not the fact of the matter. I don't need empirical claims to prove.
Smoothie, you didn't meet your burden, nigga. It's fine.
What
So
do
look,
you mean?
here's what I'm
I
gonna do.
mean,
I'm gonna give you an argument as to why error theory is gonna be the kind of thing which does best account for these moral discourse practices, and then in virtue of that, we have the feasible reason to accept error theory. Are you ready for the argument?
Stop dick riding. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So the argument is gonna be very simple, but you might be asking, well, what does best accounts for me here?
Hold on,
And
hold on.
best accounts
Let me
for
make it clear. Let me make it clear. I deny the fact that there is a burden applicable towards me because I don't take it to be the case that I have to justify it in an empirical sense. I can give motivation to why X is going to be true or X seems to be true, or we have motivation to believe that the reason for X is going to be, more motivating than the comparison. I don't need empirical analysis. But go ahead.
yeah, that's fine. So, you might be asking, well, why do I think error theory best accounts for these folk discourse practices? But before that, we have to make sure we know what best accounts for means. Best accounts for it means that the explanans is a thing which best explains the explanandum available compared to the competing or contrastive hypotheses. And what it means to be the best explanation is that while explaining the datum compared to its competitors, this hypothesis is going to be the kind of thing which is more theoretically virtuous. Now, the main two virtues that I'm going to be motivated here is explanatory power and parsimony. Hypothesis H has more explanatory power to H1 if and only if H explains a wider or deeper set of relevant facts to H1. A hypothesis H is more parsimonious than H1 if and only if H1 explains the datum equally and H is ontologically simpler than the other. Now, you might be asking, why should we care about explanatory power? And the reason why is because when we're evaluating competing theories, we look at the relevant data, right? Explanatory virtues are going to be the kinds of things that, explanatory power, here, I'll just say that proper theory, going to be the kind of thing that does not merely account for why things work. They give an understanding that we gain from these type of theoretical explanations. So I'm going to explain to you why error theory is going to be the best account for. It's more parsimonious than other hypotheses, right? Such as moral realism, and it seems like it explains things like moral disagreement better than the non-cog thesis.
Just give
There's
reasons.
prima facie, and then I could give you motivation for phenomenal conservatism if you want that.
No, I don't need that. Also, you said that your view is going to be more parsimonious and it has more it's theoretically virtuous. I need reasons for both of those claims. And obviously, when you make the claim, you're making a comparison in reference towards the domain in which I'm using, which is quasi-realism. So, how is your view more theoretically? How is your view more parsimonious than quasi-realism, and how is it theoretically virtuous?
Well, what I said more parsimonious, I'm just talking about the competing hypothesis, which is going to be more realist hub, right? That's the competing hypothesis, which I think
Yes.
is more parsimonious. But if you want the argument as to why it best explains the datum,
No,
right,
no,
or
no.
it has more
Wait, hold on. You said,
explanatory power,
wait, hold
right, I
on.
would just say
Wait,
that
hold on.
error theory,
Hold on. I need clarification. It's more parsimonious in reference towards what? Compared towards what?
yeah, any more realism
I'm
hypotheses.
not making a more realist hypothesis, but go ahead. What's the theoretical virtuous
Yeah,
ones?
I know. So the reason why it's going to be more explanatory power is because it seems to be the case that it best accounts for things like the intuition that people have of getting logical inferences, right? I would
The
say that,
intuition of what? Just prove that.
yeah, the intuition that people have of getting logical inferences.
All right, the
I
intuition
do
that
have
people
some
have by using the
empirical.
logical inferences.
I do have some empirical statistics. I'm about to pull those up right now.
Hold on. You said that you said the intuition that people have by giving logical
That we are
inferences,
able to get these logical
getting logical
inferences, which is
inferences in reference,
contrasting to the view that you
and
have, because these people
you're
are
using
unable.
error theory.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just prove that in reference towards error theory is going to be consistent with that.
Well, the reason why it's going to be consistent is because, right,
Example, simple
um,
logic.
we're talking about the ability for logical inference. And
I
I think
understand
you can
that.
only get logical inferences like modus ponens if there is a true functional relation. But you don't get a true functional relation between the antecedent and precedent if the antecedent and precedent are the kinds of things that can be true or false. Right? It's cognitivist thesis in nature, but I am going to give you these statistics for
This is
this
it.
empirical way.
Hold on. When you talk, you gotta slow that shit down, gang. Just be slower.
Yeah, I said what I'm saying it best accounts for is the intuition that people have that we're able to get these type of inferences. And all able there be is just is that there is a capacity for a true functional relation between the precedent and antecedent, and I have statistics for that.
All right, go ahead. Supposed to be an abortion talk. We got to ethics. My worst topic. No. Well, outside
Yo,
of
don't ever run quasi-realism again, you bum. What the fuck's wrong with you?
your teeth sound too little for your fucking mouth.
Are you a retard? What the
Like
fuck's
you're
that?
chewing on your fucking tongue with those tiny ass teeth.
Yeah,
What's
are they
going on?
debate?
Oh God, you guys have one more minute.
All right, that's good. That's fine. I just need the empirical data for the claim. Also, I take it to be the case that he said it was parsimonious in reference towards a realist claim. I'm not using a realist claim. He also said it's theoretically virtuous, and I asked for argument for that and motivation for that.
Okay, well, I don't think this part is gonna matter much. You guys barely have time to talk about anyway, so.
We barely had time to even talk about abortion. Like dead ass, we didn't even get into abortion. Nigga asked me for my definition of abortion, then just went to bed ethics.
Cap, on everything I love at 6:12. Okay, debate's over. Do you guys want to
All
give
right,
conclusions? I
hold
don't
on,
really
That
need
ass?
conclusions.
hold
Oh
on. For the
my
conclusion,
god.
are you a
All right, go to
quasi-realist?
closings. Go to closings. Go to closings.
I'm not a quasi-realist. That's just the view to which that's the only view to which I know of outside of like more realist and
Oh,
more
yeah.
anti-realist.
Go to
Are you sure you
closings.
know what
Okay, I can
quasi-realism
get my
is?
Shut the
closer
fuck up,
first.
Dean. They're in debate,
I
twin.
get conclusion.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to make it very clear that my opponent failed to motivate the empirical claim uh, that he made, which was that I'm unclear on the empirical claim, but I'm pretty sure he failed to motivate one of the empirical claims, and I made it clear that he failed to be his burden, and we moved on. It seems like he also failed to motivate his meta-ethical thesis, and he didn't really give, an adequate expected response for the Frege gauge problem. Also, it seems like he doesn't really understand sophisticated expressivism because sophisticated expressivism is actually the kind of view which is molded to exactly solve the Frege gauge problem, as well
That's
as
right.
quasi-realism. So, yeah, I'll just go. In my time here, my opponent failed to be his burden. He didn't justify his meta-ethical thesis, and that's it.
Okay, my turn. He said his position was more theoretically virtuous. I put into question. He did not provide any reasons to why it's theoretically virtuous. He said it was parsimonious. I said it's not relevant towards a quasi-realist type standard. He agreed it's only irrelevant towards a realist standard. He said he's able to get these inferences from evidence. I told him to ask. I told him to give the evidence. The evidence has yet to be provided. He said, I use it sophisticated expressivism. No, I said the quasi-realism is something like sophisticated expressivism. It's not sophisticated expressivism within itself. I justify quasi-realism by him giving these counterexamples and me attacking or me giving reasons to why these counterexamples doesn't actually attack the theory of quasi-realism. I said, He said, why do we get these? How do we get these true functional conditions? And I said, we do not get the true functional conditions because true functioning things do not work for moral talk in the domain in which I apply it towards. I answered the Frege-Geach problem because he tried to implement it by saying, well, Frege-Geach problem can be answered insofar that we can say that these set things to which they do represent as a true functioning condition aren't actually true functioning. They're just there for the intelligibility for the conversation. They're there for the comprehensibility of the conversation. What else? He said that it was an empirical claim applicable towards me. I told him that there's no empirical claim applicable towards me. I said that given the comparison, I said I'm more motivating to believing X than Y. It's not saying that there is an empirical analysis for why X is going to be more motivating than Y. I said it's based upon the evidence. I'm more motivating to believe X than Y. Then I said I can give a bunch of reasons to why I'm more motivating to believing X than Y. He said no, it's an empirical claim, and he moved on from that. Also, the debate is about abortion. We never got into abortion. I said I'm pro-choice. He never defeated pro-choice. He went on to a different meta-ethical theory. So again, pro-choice still stands. But go ahead.
All right, we'll
guys.
let Cool Guy give verdict.
Well, I think it's kind of weird to say like I won the debate considering you guys didn't really end on a point where other view is falsified. But I think Smoothie won. And the reason I think Smoothie won is because I think most of it kind of rested on this one point in the debate. So Capp gave the embedding problem, and then after he gave the embedding problem, Smoothie's response was something like, well, there are these like kind of like pseudo inferences that aren't like technically inferences, but they're a representation of them. And that's how his moral epistemology counts for this kind of intuition that it seems deductively valid to say something like if P then Q, P therefore Q, where the propositional variables have moral content. But regardless of that's a very satisfactory response. It seems like Capp maybe misheard Smoothie at some point and was thinking that Smoothie didn't agree with him that there is this intuition to have coherency and comprehensibility, whatever exactly that means for inferences, because Smoothie kind of like shifted what counts, what accounts for the intuition not being that there are these specific kinds of inferences, but instead that allow for like intelligibility in a dialogue, which is what he called coherence. But Capp kept asking him stuff like, doesn't work with folk discourse practices, because he thinks that Smoothie didn't agree that you kind of needed to have this kind of like coherency criterion. But Smoothie did think that. And then as for like the second part of the debate, I mean, they barely had any time to discuss it. And Capp couldn't fulfill his bird object, but it's not really relevant because he only had like a minute to do that. So I don't really care about that. So I guess you can say Smoothie won. But they also like didn't really talk about the topic. They talked about if Smoothie's quasi-realist stance was true or false, which they barely even finished on. But yeah, if that's all I have to judge.
The proposition was pro-choice is true, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like at worst, it's in con. Otherwise, Smoothie won. Like I don't know how you guys judge debates. Like
It's fine. It's fine. You gave verdict.